Gusala Kuchik is asking, are you seeing more cracks in the unity of the Iranian hardliners yet, or have they started to find some cohesion? The propaganda coming out of the regime certainly isn't cohesive. The narrative and details are all over the place. Yes, it's actually, let me actually share this with you guys. So, insider opposition grows to Khamenei's intransigence. Opposition to Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei from within his own government appears to be on the rise 1 month after the start of an anti-government uprising. During this period, Khamenei has made it clear at least twice that he wants the protests to be crushed and protesters punished heavy-handedly, although a few officials, including Interior Minister Ahmad Vahidi and Mashhad Friday prayer Imam Ahmad Alam al-Huda, have echoed Khamenei's call for violent crackdown. Several politicians, including one government minister, a senior aide, and several lawmakers and former state officials have pointed out that the regime needs to make compromise on some of its values in order to peacefully curb the dissent. Khamenei's senior aide, this guy is just very significant. Ali Larijani, a former speaker of the Iranian parliament, said in an October 12th interview with this newspaper, which is owned and maintained by Khamenei's office, that the regime's insistence on its social values will elicit violent reactions on the part of the protesters. Quoting another state official as saying that more than 50% of Iranian women do not observe the government-imposed dress code, Larijani said, when a behavior is so widely prevalent in the society, it is wrong to involve the police in a bid to curb that behavior.
Right. Anyways, so then this is according to their own source. This guy, Ali Larijani, he's Khamenei's own aide.
Yeah, he's one of the most powerful people in the country.
Because within their own government, he recognized that, hang on a second, this 50% of the people are not happy with this dress code. So do not include the police to enforce that dress code.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, and also there's a...
Is that guy Ali Larijani?
Yes, that guy's Ali Larijani.
Oh, okay.
He's very rich, very powerful. Yeah. And there's a whole bunch of marjas from Qom that are calling out the regime, and they're not just the marjas from Qom, like highest official religious leaders in the country. They're not saying they need reforms. They're saying that this guy's supreme leadership is invalid. That's how far they're going openly. Well, I mean, they signed the letter, but they didn't put their names on it, unfortunately. But that's pretty significant. Like his religious authority is being questioned. This is unprecedented. There seems to be some internal cracks, and that's the only way for the regime to topple. Like, people coming into the streets is not going to be enough. There needs to be some cracks within the regime, and we're getting a lot of signals. We're also getting signals that a lot of people are not following the orders of crackdown. Like, there's some commanders that are from higher ups, they're telling them to crush the protests, and they're just acting like they didn't get an order. So there are still some loyal people that are like really aggressive, and we see like some aggressive behavior, but there's also some, and also like I go to these pro-regime people's like rooms on Clubhouse, and I listen to what they say, and they are so divided, Harris. They are fighting with each other. Some of them agree, some of them disagree. Some of them that used to be diehard fans of Khamenei are now questioning his speech. I've never seen this much disagreement within the pro-regime religious people. It's amazing. It's unprecedented. Like, so if this continues, I just don't know how they can hold, because the people don't have the weapons or the power to turn it on the regime to force them down. But if there's a crack within the internal forces of the regime, they have the firepower to at least maybe do a coup one day. I don't know. We'll see. What do you think?
Well, I don't know. Like, I mean, it's hard to tell, because you were saying before that, the hardliners, they're still like, well, I think you were just randomly giving a ballpark figure that 10 to 15% people, they're still diehard supporters of the Islamic regime. And those people have weapons, and they have the firepower, and they are more passionate about defending the Islamic regime. But then on the other hand, I this is why I'm very skeptical about that. I've spoken with Mariam Namazi. She's very hopeful. She thinks that, like there's a lot of it's a men. What's that slogan? Zan
Zandagi Azadi.
Zan
Women, life, freedom.
Yes. So we're talking about that, and we're thinking that, okay, all men and women from all factions, from all religious beliefs, secular or not, they're all coming together. But as you say, there's 10-15% of the people are diehard fans of the Islamic regime, and then we have the Kurds, who are not necessarily secular, but they could be secular, but they themselves are it's a very fractious kind of a community. And then you have secular people who may not be, who may not be armed, may not be very powerful. So I actually don't know. Like, I rely on you guys, but the information that I get from you, I don't know. It's not very encouraging.
Well, okay, so the religious people are joining the secular people against the regime on a faster rate year by year. So, and that's why a lot of protesters are like, please, like, we know a lot of Iranians are very anti-religious, anti-Islam, but like a lot of secular people are saying, this is not the right time to burn Qurans in the streets or to insult the imams or Hussein or stuff like that, because for the first time we're getting a mass movement of religious people joining the secular people, right? So
but
that's why.
Can we call it a secular movement though, or just an anti-Islamic regime movement? It's not a secular movement if the religious people are joining it.
No, the religious people who are joining it still makes it secular, because the religious people who are joining it are religious, but they don't think that the religion should be forced on people, right? So that still makes it secular, even though they have religious beliefs. Yeah, secularism doesn't mean like no religion. It just
no, I get it, but I'm just a bit skeptical of that. So because we know historically, unless you are a communist, only then atheist or secular people tend to come to power. If they're not, then they're useless. It's always the religious people who end up taking power. So even if these religious people may be like, okay, we are anti-Islamic regime, but when we do come to power, hang on a second, it is still an Islamic republic.
Well, the attitude seems to be by a lot of these religious people that it seems like taking power makes people hate Islam. So they're like, for the sake of Islam, we should be secular. Because they have seen for the past 40 years, there's no movement more than Islamic Republic that has made millions of people go from being Muslims to being not just non-Islamic, but anti-Islamic, right? Nothing has been a better force in history of mankind in turning people against religion this fast. So they have experienced that. And even though they are still religious, I've seen some religious people who believe in the hijab, who are taking off their hijab as a protest. They're like, you know what?
Off. They're sick of it.
Yeah, but they're not. They're going beyond like, oh, I support your right to take off your hijab. They're like, during these protests, even though I believe that hijab is mandated by God, I feel compelled to take off my hijab. That's how
pissed off people
are. It's pretty. Yeah. It's I don't know. Here's the thing. If this, I don't know what's going to happen. But if this turns to nothing, I would be shocked. That's what I would say. I mean, I don't know how long. Maybe 5 years. Maybe 10 years.
Really? Is it going to take that long?
Maybe. But I can't imagine.
But the chances of immediate takeover are gone. Yeah, you've lost the momentum.
Well, I mean, the momentum is never.
It never goes away. I know they could come back again next year. I mean, it's something else.
No, I'm just saying the momentum was never good enough. The momentum, people being in the streets alone is not going to achieve anything.
But they're not going to get weapons from America.
No, okay. There's three options again. Okay, weapons. You need some military force or weaponry to at least have some. So for your complaints to have some force behind it, even if you don't use the weapons, for you to be able to make that final push, you need to be holding weapons, right? So there's three options. One of them is a foreign force coming in. That seems out of question. Another one is for people to be armed. That I don't think shouldn't be an option, because if people are armed, then
you could have regime, ISIS, you could have Hezbollah, you could have people and other militias forming.
No, that would be the time where the regime actually brings in the military rather than its anti-protest forces, right? because now the people are armed, and it will turn into a civil war inside the country, and the regime has more firepower. I mean, even if you give Iranians Kalashnikovs and stuff, like, it's hard to imagine what you're going to do with that against like tanks and helicopters, right?
A couple of javelins will do.
Yeah, but I think the best option is for a coup to happen. I think the most peaceful, clean, less.
How's that going to happen?
By creating dissent within the regime. But I think the way you get from people protesting into the streets to actually toppling the regime is the effect of the people in the streets are having on the religious people or pro-regime people. Like the constant exposure to that is changing their minds rapidly. So if that happens, we're going to eventually see, especially when Khamenei dies. I mean, Khamenei is like...
it's pretty old. That's pretty sick.
It's pretty old. So... if we're saying this much division right now, imagine how much division are we going to see when he dies. That would be significant.
Yeah. But this is where the next question takes you. It says, do you think the uprising in Iran is empty without a leader?
Yes and no. Okay, I think right now an individual leader is not the right answer. Okay, because it might cause more fraction. Because right now the unity that we're seeing is because a lot of people have been united over one cause, which is being anti the Islamic Republic, okay? However, if you introduce a leader at this moment, that might actually cause division because it will shift the focus from being anti-Islamic Republic to why is this our leader? Like, a lot of people would want Reza Pahlavi to be leader. A lot of people would want, like, I don't know,
Reza Pahlavi could still come into the equation?
Yes, I mean, that's the number one person that people are asking for. But the problem with that, but the problem with that is that he doesn't seem interested. Okay, he himself doesn't seem very interested. But I think right now it's
what
better
about
to
Armin
Navabi? Yeah, sure, the Quran burner. Yeah, that's not gonna be. Yeah, no. But here's what I see. Okay, we're seeing we don't see individual leadership, but we're seeing organic street leadership, which is not based on the charisma of one individual, but based on the utility of what that leadership could provide, right? So we're seeing a lot of groups like this. Like, for example, this is
جوانان سراسر کشور مشکل شده از لیدرها. Is that right?
Wait, what? جوانان سر بیانیه اول انجمن ملی جوانان سرور کشور. So this is like the first statement of a group called Young People of the Nation. A young group of the nation.
Jawanan, right? Jawanan is plural of Jawan, young people.
Yes. So they're coming up with like statements of this is where we're gathering, this is the day that we're coming up, this is the day that we're going to do strikes, and it just seems very professionally written, and it seems like very organized, and it seems like they have good advisors. So after a while, if they keep posting stuff like seems like very useful statements and call out for certain actions to be taken, if they end up being useful and helpful, organically people will keep coming to their account to see what's the next statement. So we're seeing some form of organic leadership. Like, we have multiple groups like this right now. So I think, like, in the age of social media, instead of having an individual as a charismatic leader to become the leader in the streets, these kind of young social media utility-based crowdsourced leadership is what this movement needs.
Right.
What this uprising needs. So this is what I think is happening. And but however, I agree that at some point you are going to need a leader, because if eventually people's relative strength to the government increases, then you would need somebody to negotiate with. So both the current government and also foreign forces and foreign leaders and the United Nations, they need to see somebody that is talking on behalf of the Iranian people. And I think when the need arises, that will organically come into be. Like, you don't have to push it. You could just wait for it, and it will just present itself when that need comes. Right now, we don't need that. Right now, we don't need somebody to speak on behalf of people, because the people are speaking for themselves, and they're doing it very effectively. No lobbyist for the Iranian people has ever been as successful at getting their voices heard internationally in the same way, in the way that little girls in the streets have been able to today. Right now, there's no politician that has been able to so successfully represent Iranian voices inside of Iran and outside of Iran more than the Iranian people themselves by protesting. So right now, I think it might be too soon, but at some point, I think it will become a requirement. To have your questions answered on the next live stream, become my patron today. You can do so with as little as $1 a month. Link in the description below.